Hello, welcome to the West Virginia Author Show. I'm your host, Kat Pleska, and with me today is a multi-talented producer of wonderful creative works, multiple genres, and so I would like for everybody to say hello to Danny Boyd.
Yeah, Kat, so great to see you.
It's good to see you too, Danny. So tell us a little bit about your background, where you're from, how you got to where you are.
Well, I'm originally from Martinsburg, graduate, and we have our 50th reunion coming up next month.
Oh, good. Congratulations.
Thank you. Wonderful, wonderful growing up. Pikeside outside of Martinsburg. Was in remedial classes. I'll shorten the story. The whole time I was, once you're in remedial, you're stuck in remedial,
Yeah.
probably slightly learning disabled. And my sophomore year, I had an English teacher, a couple days in, said, "You're too smart to be in this class." And I said, "I've been accused of a lot of things, but not being too smart." So I moved to the regular English class and didn't like it, so came back. And that dear friend, Carolyn Zwire, introduced me to theater. Mm-hmm. Her husband hired me as working at the country club. I learned how to play golf, and we've been friends since. And she just contracted me to do the women's club, Martinsburg Garden Club special event next month.
Okay.
Not for books,
Yeah.
but for Garden Club.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, wonderful. It's nice. That's nice to be remembered like that.
Thank you. It is
Stay
nice.
in connections.
Yeah.
It's all that important. We talked about that earlier, about those connections.
All of
They are
us.
so important, especially in our creative field, of writing and producing writing and that sort of thing. It's actually a small community, but yet it's not. Everybody kind of knows everybody.
It's wonderful. People say, "Well, why do you stay in West Virginia? Where else would I stay? I could work anywhere and live anywhere I want." It's like I've got the most wonderful, talented pool for close to 40 years now. We've all
Yes.
been working together, the same
Yes.
people.
That's
why,
true.
Why would you change? You've got the best people you can have around you in a place you love.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people don't realize that, but it's a wonderful creative state community to
And I'm
be
going
in.
to talk too much. You know how I am. But we were messaging back and forth. We were talking about a new property, and I said, time is a wonderful thing. And now I have time for the first time. I can take days and think about something. And I have to say, by golly, you were right for those things. But it's time and place.
Yes.
I love my place, and I love having time.
And the way you have interpreted and presented to us this place through your creative works. Let's start with your scripts and your movies. So can we talk about Paradise Park?
We talk about whatever you want.
Okay.
Paradise Park was, again, that's the most serious of my feature films. The last one, inspired, you asked about inspirations. It was probably inspired by Spike Lee's Do the Right Thing.
Oh.
I just love that movie. It's a 24-hour movie, if you remember. So I thought, I want to write a 24-hour movie. So Paradise Park, again, as all my movies deal with stereotypes and really blowing up stereotypes.
Yes.
Shot in 18 days, which is impossible, really. It's
Probably.
on film.
Yes,
So-
on film, not digital, because the original was
before
film.
digital, yeah. No, so anyway, good run with that. Larry Gross played the lead part. And Jim Wolfe, you just saw in here,
Yep.
was in it, who's been my lead character in many things. And then fast forward to years later, became friends with Homer Hickam and got booked with Rocket Boys Festival with him in Beckley. And the director then, Scott Hill, said, "I really wanted to meet you because I want to tell you I went to see Paradise Park in the premiere, and it's my favorite movie." And I said, "Well, thank you. I've heard that before. Thank you." And then a couple, hours later, he says, "No, I just want to tell you, it's not just my favorite. It's of all time movies. It's my favorite." So the third time he came back and he said, this is my favorite movie. I said, I don't own the rights. You could buy the rights. The dude bought the rights.
Did he?
He bought the rights.
Wow.
My movie had been repoed.
Oh, I see.
So-
Explain what repo is. Not everybody will know what that
Well,
means.
if you don't make your money back on a movie, and we were close. Paradise Park just had a lot of bad luck, as the Hollywood Hell thing. And well acclaimed and all that, but won many film awards, but it didn't quite make its money back. So the financier repoed the movie and wanted me to buy it back, and I said, I'm not going to buy it back. So years later, Scott Hill, who was the director of Rocket Boys Festival, but also the director of Theater West Virginia. So had the movie remastered, and it's now on Amazon Prime. Really pretty.
Yes, I've
really,
seen it. I watched it on Amazon Prime.
thank you.
Because I
Yeah.
hadn't seen it for years.
Yeah, well, it's much prettier now.
Yeah.
It really
Yeah.
looks nice. And then he came to me and he said, I'm the director of Theater West Virginia. What do you think about turning it into a musical? And I said, well, I've always wanted to write a musical. I have, screenwriting I know, but playwriting I don't know. And he said, do you think Larry would do the music, Larry Gross? I said, I don't know. Let me ask. So Larry and I had lunch after that, and I said, this is going to be the weirdest conversation you and I have always had. And said, what do you think about doing this, writing the music? And he said, well, you should definitely write the book, but I'm not sure I could do it. I said say the same thing about you.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's how Larry Gross, same leading actor in both.
Yes. Yeah, I went to Beckley to the theater to see
thank you.
to see it. It was terrific.
Oh, thank you.
It was very well done. I love the music in it. It was terrific.
Oh, thank you.
So it just keeps on giving. Paradise Park is wonderful.
Well, Kat, if we live long enough and you stay your antenna up, if you just pay attention, things can come back around.
Yes.
Lucky us, here we are.
Yeah, here we are. Okay, let's move on to Strangest Dreams, Invasion of the Space Preachers.
Right, yeah. Well, that was my second movie, and this was to be my National Lampoon movie. It's actually the first screenplay I wrote.
Oh, okay.
Right when I was moving to Charleston in '83 to State.
Yeah. West Virginia State.
West Virginia State.
Yeah.
West Virginia State College at the time, now West Virginia State University.
Yes.
So I loved those National Lampoon movies, Vacation and all that. And I thought, man, a West Virginia version of that would be really good. So we did, it was, the original title was Strangest Dreams. And then when we did the distribution deal, Troma, who still is in existence, said you can't use that title. And I said, I've made too many T-shirts. so it became Strangest Dreams, Invasion of the Space Preachers.
Okay. Well, I love that second part too.
No, and when I got my first movie deal with Chillers, '88, there were, that was the birth of home video stores.
Yes. Yes.
And I mean, it was a time when a low-budget filmmaker could go across the world, and we did. But when we were doing this deal, there were probably 30 to 40 significant distributors. And I kept thinking about Troma, because they're crazy movies. People said, "Oh, you shouldn't go with Troma," and I said, "I don't know. I have a good feeling about them." And of all of those distributors, Kat, only one still existing.
Wow.
And we're
it's
great
Troma.
friends, still great friends.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's terrific. A lot of people don't realize that, they think, oh, I've got a contract with a publisher and it's going to be great and all that. What they really need to be looking at with a publisher, and I may be telling on myself here, but is looking at the distribution.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll tell you when we get to the end part, I'll tell you beforehand, I'm expanding distribution, so it's a good thing.
That's awesome.
Yep. Yeah. So we'll get us more out there, because distribution is key. Who's going to see it if they don't distribute it?
Well, we'll work it.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. So, how about Chillers? Let's talk about Chillers.
Chillers was the first, and again, the new set. I mean, it was an anthology movie because I didn't think I was a good enough writer to write a full-length movie. So I loved those old creepy, eerie anthology kinds of things. So I wrote 5 stories with a wraparound with the same characters to bring it all together. And actually, the studio segment it was right here in the studio.
Yes.
John Calvert was running the studio there, and we shot that. And it was this is how bold we were. It was shot over 9 months, but each of the 5 segments were shot in 3 days because there were only 5 people in the whole state that could shoot film, and I'd bring it who had real jobs, mostly in TV, but film guys. So I would bring them in for a 1 weekend a month for a shoot. And we shot that entire movie blind. We could not afford to transfer it.
Oh.
We sent it to the lab each day, and all they could tell us was, well, there's an image.
Oh.
We did not, it was not until I got a movie deal at the end, and because somehow we were able to cobble together, Michael Lipton's music, did some kind of music video. We were able to transfer it, and then knew we had a movie.
Wow.
So that you talk about blind faith.
Yeah. That's terrific the way it come together, and it's so much easier now. But you're talking about a time period where these were
it was,
layers of things that have to come together. That's very difficult.
It was so difficult.
Yeah, and worrisome. Like, I've done all this work, and all these people are involved. Is this going to work?
Oh, I mean, and I had to wait 8 months to find out if we even had a second of it. But lucky to do that. And people, and I told my students when I was teaching, same thing. I said, the great news about the digital revolution is anybody can do it.
Yes.
The bad news is anybody can
do it. Yes, this is true. This is very true.
Yeah.
The more the technology changes and allows everybody in, the more people are going to jump on, and it also, but people who might not have had a chance to have a voice, to be
I love
heard.
all that. I love all that. People ask me,
that's really, it's worth it.
It's so worth it. All of it is so worth it. But it's like people say, well, why won't you work in another movie? I said, I cannot put my people through this again.
Yeah.
I absolutely cannot.
Yeah.
And plus, I'm never going to do it better than when I did. I don't have the temperament. I don't have the patience.
Yeah. Well, it's good to recognize, those
absolutely. And again,
those limitations, I guess.
And the thing that's made me the happiest, Kat, is I didn't realize I became a screenwriter only because no one else would write my movies. That's what which I've started to love the most, or discovered that I love the most, is like, just put me in front of my computer and let me stare out at my nice west side garden. And
you got time.
And that is my life, and I couldn't be happier.
Yeah, it's time, but it's also headspace. Headspace in the sense that, nothing, you can't have a gazillion things crowding in. When you're working, when you've got a job and working, that just consumes. Especially now,
so
we work harder.
But I mean, you still have a job.
Yes, I do have a full-time job.
I've been retired 9 years.
Oh, wow, that long. I didn't realize.
But I guess, I hate to say thanks to COVID, I wrote 5 books during COVID.
Yeah.
It was like, what, you going to drink or are you going to write? Well, I better write.
I'm glad you did. I'm glad you chose writing.
Me too. But again, again, my space. Have you and Dan been to my house here on Western? Oh, you have to come. We have 14 years of our kids' garden club there.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
But so I can just write, and I just turn my head and look at the garden.
It's just lush.
The kids don't even knock on the door. They'll come in and get a popsicle, so it's like it's paradise.
That's nice.
And I'm sorry to take you off track. It's
No.
just old friends.
Well, this is what creative people need. What you're talking about, I think it's an important subject matter. So there's a gap between when you did your films and when you began doing the graphic novels. So let's talk about that switch to graphic novels and what inspired those.
Well, graphic novels it inspired because while my first real job before I came to state, my first job was at Southern West Virginia Community College in Mingo County.
Yes.
And I thought I knew West Virginia, but I did not know West Virginia. Mingo County still is probably the greatest influence on any of my creative work.
Wow.
And I had met these young environmental radicals. I was naive about all of it, strip mining and all that kind of stuff. But I just befriended these people and started realizing, the issues with mountaintop removal and all of those political things too. And I thought carbon would be
Right.
The best property that I could write. And then I realized that it was too big. I was never going to be able to make movies that big. But my whole idea was, carbon is, turned, ancient rock and plant material, and vegetation, all that kind of stuff. What if it reversed? What if it came back to life? So, and again, I realized early on, in very touchy subjects, it's best to deal with fantasy, or science fiction kinds of things.
Approach it that way,
Right,
that kind of
right,
approach.
because
yeah.
no one wants, we don't even want to watch the news anymore.
Not anymore.
So it's like, put a fanciful spin on it. So again, it was like, okay, I'm going to switch to graphic novels. But I have no name in that world. So I went back to where I had a name and we wrote Chillers. And 4 of us, West Virginia writers, well, and plus my publisher Caliber, and they were in Detroit, wrote both volumes. And I wrote the majority of the stories, but all Bob Tennell, Bill Bittner, Jason Pell, we wrote like anthology,
Yes.
like the movie.
Yes.
So I thought, well, let me do that because I try to get some shine there, and then I can move toward carbon. So then it worked. Very successful. The 2 volumes of Chillers anthology, and then Carbon had enough success that I was able to do the sequel Salt. With that. So again, it was a means to an end. It's not, as I got older, I realized it's really not about the medium. It's about the message.
Yes.
And that was the way to do it. So I retooled there too. And that's a whole retooling too into the graphic novel world, and
Yeah.
taught our students there. We had Betsy. Betsy wrote one of the stories.
Betsy Allen.
Betsy Allen
Yes.
did. And another of our grad students there wrote one of them. But that's how I made that switch.
Yeah, I agree with you about carbon, about that approach to it that you had. And it's discussing the subject matter without, inflaming the whole issue and that sort of thing.
But what I learned to do is have a message, but don't tell your characters what the message is. These are all just like
good.
our people.
That's good
How we
advice.
grew up, it's just just working people. We don't have time to think about the message. We're living it. So
We are.
That's what I've tried to do, and even with God's Pool now that we'll hopefully talk about.
Yes, we will.
It's same thing. It's like there's a message, but don't tell your characters what it is.
No, that's true. How about Death Falcon Zero? Tell me about that.
That is my foray into professional wrestling.
Yes.
And my dear friend Bill Bittner and my tag team partner, both of us were 48 years old, and he trained before me. A brilliant writer, Bill is, and we just became tag. I was going to do it for one event. I trained for a month, but I was going to do it for one event. And I did it for 11 years.
Yeah.
But he had these stories, and we kicked them around. So basically, Bill did the hard lifting on that book. But it's all set on the west side, and all socially
West side
conscious.
of Charleston.
West side of Charleston, right there. And deals with the issues and the hidden bugaboos, drugs, slumlords, all of that.
Yeah.
And it's semi-illustrated. It's partially illustrated book, but that is actually my first foray into prose style writing.
Oh, okay.
And thank God for Bill, because he sort of helped me along with that.
Yeah, he's a prose writer. Does he have other books?
Oh, he has 6 or 7 books
wow.
of.
Well, I need to get Bill on here then.
Oh, Bill's awesome.
Yeah.
No, but wonderful writer, and great tag team partner.
Well, you came in on graphic novels, I think, not at the very beginning, but kind of when it was starting to, to go up more and more people were getting into graphic novels, and they still are. I've worked with art students, I've worked with, creative writing students, and there's a significant number that are really interested in doing graphic novels.
Well, Bill had followed comics. I'd stopped reading comics in the 60s when there were comic books.
I know.
And then he was telling me about graphic novel. I didn't even know what a graphic novel was. And he said, well, you should really check them out. And that's how, it's like, well, they became grown up and very sophisticated. And you're right, again, right time, right place.
Yes. Yeah. Good timing. Now you have children's books, right? Okay.
I do.
Let's talk about a couple of those.
Okay, well this is a funny. I'm trying to keep the story short for you guys, but I can't tell a short story. I always had this story. Is this up? I had this story of the Adventures of Wandala.
Wandala.
Yes, Wandala. When I was, I made the story up for my daughters when they were very young, because I was doing these international contracts around the world, Fulbrights, and I thought, well, we did a trip together.
Yes, we did. I loved it.
We did an awesome
to Prague,
trip. To Prague.
To FAMU.
FAMU, right.
Yeah, that was a wonderful trip.
West Virginians, we tend to fear the outside world. Now, I embrace the outside world, and I did not want my kids to fear it, because I was in some scary places over those years. So I created the story Adventures of Wandala. And it was an oral story. I would just tell them the story. And then years later, as I thought, I want to try to write prose style from screenwriting. So I was able to finally retire and have a month where I could go to Belize, the one country that I'd love to spend time in the winter. And so I said, I'm going to try to write. So I wrote the Adventure Wandala, and wrote it in 7 days, Kat. I shouldn't say this, 7 days. And I did, not until I got back the month later, I gave it to Mark Harshman, our poet laureate, and Burke Allen, my publicist guy, management guy in Washington. And I sent to them both, and I said, is this publishable? And both said, yeah. And this doesn't happen. I mean, you and I, this deal we'll talk about happened pretty quickly. But I mean, that doesn't happen in publishing. You know that.
I do know that.
But with Adventures of Wandala, I got that deal in 3 days.
Wow.
3 days.
Who published that?
It was Headline Books. Kathy Teets at Headline Books. I did 4 books. I've done 4 books with them. And then she confessed to me. She says, "But that's not the one I thought you were talking about. I thought you were talking about Miss Dirt Turtle's Garden Club." And I said, "Well, no, I've only done it because Larry Gross and I wrote the musical before we wrote the book for that." And I said, "I haven't done the book version yet." She said, "Well, I want them both." So that's how that happened.
Yeah. Oh, that's a wonderful thing to have a publisher say, "Well, get me both of them." You know, you don't have to fight and say, "Please, just take just one." It's hard.
I've had a great run with them.
Yeah. Well, that's good. That's good. And before we talk about your new project. Let's talk just a little bit about your graphic draw. You're the ones who do the graphics in your book.
I've worked with nearly the same people in all of that world, in the comics, in the graphic novels, children's books. Same illustrator in all the children's books, Hector Mexia, who is a wonderful kid. Not kid, I mean, he's
younger man.
30,
yeah.
30, kids to us.
Yeah.
Just a wonderful person out of Mexicali, Mexico.
Okay.
And we just hit it off we never met in person till last summer when I had him come to San Diego to a ballpark with us. It's the only time we met in person. Everything was long distance, Zoom, and that sort of thing. But he's such a wonderful illustrator that he could adapt the style, different style for each book that made it work. And again, with photo references that I would send.
Wow.
But I love Hector, and I think you will too, because we're kicking around the cover for the new book.
Oh, okay. Well, let's segue right into that new book.
Yeah.
Give us the title.
My first novel was actually a novella, God's Pool in Particle Park. Mm-hmm. And it is in the style of magic realism, like 100 Years of Solitude is probably the father of magic realism, Marquez. It came from that. But you know, I've been trying to think about this, Kat, before coming here, but it's probably the closest to Paradise Park, because Paradise Park veers into fantasy.
It does.
And this is the same kind of world. Small village, West Virginia, with ramifications to the outside world. And again, with the main characters, don't know what the message is.
Right.
But no, so God's Pool in Particle Park. It's just nice to say it out loud. That it's coming. It's happening.
God's Pool in Particle Park. That's
well, and subject to change. We can talk about that, but. But I have to, may I say how I came up with the title?
Yes, absolutely.
So my daughter's 39 now, and my oldest daughter. So she was probably 8, 9. Yeah, had to be because she was an actress in Paradise Park at 10. We were at the pool, laying back at our lounge chair, staring up at the sky, and she said, "Look, God's Pool."
Wow.
And I thought, wow.
Out of the mouth
From the mouths of babes.
No. Oh my gosh, it's an incredible thing for her to have said.
Well, and that's we should always pay attention to kids.
Oh, yes.
I mean, because we haven't been beaten down to forced reality, and I just thought that is so heavy, you know. And so anyway, what if she's 8 or 9, and she's 39 now? So do the math.
So that's been cooking around in there.
Right. It started as a treatment for. It was going to be my feature film, and we still we had the basic funding for it. David Selby, my buddy David Selby, very well-known actor from TV and film. He was going to play Frank. We went to Sutton, and God's Pool is set in Sutton, a fictitious village in West Virginia we call Nodus, which is Sutton backwards, because I just fell in love with it. But Kevin Carpenter started, revamped the West Virginia Filmmakers Guild there, and just fell in love with that funky, interesting village.
The one key point that I want you to mention about this new book, this novella that's coming out, is what is the doctor building in an old coal mine?
A hydro collider.
Like CERN.
Right, like CERN. No, all the science is sound. I've told Kat this. It's a lot of work. I put a lot of work into the science, and my brain doesn't go that way. And into the history, because it's a book within a book. But
that is terrific. I cannot wait. And I'm your editor-in-chief, Mountain State Press will publish you. Yes. And we're out of time, Danny. And thank you for being here. I deeply appreciate it. And everyone, all our audience, please join us next time for West Virginia Author. I'm your host, Kat Pleska. See you then. Bye-bye.